Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Off the Wall with Cody. I'm your host, Cody Wall. We got a great show on tap for you today. Been a little while since I've been on the air here doing my show, I believe back in middle of June. That's because I had the opportunity to go with ASTV to cover the 34th annual Brick Tournament. Uh, Great tournament that I'll get into a little bit more later on in our show. But looking at some other things that we're going to be talking about today on this bit of a rainy, gloomy day here in Manitoba. I know leading up to this, it's been raining off and on. Seen a couple of notifications about possible storm warnings. So everybody out there who maybe needs to be wary of those storm warnings, uh, keep that in mind. Hopefully, able to man the high waters here, the heavy waters. Uh, Little side note, crazy how Manitoba this year has gone from being so dry last summer to where my local beach here in Morden uh, actually being so low that you could almost walk out to the center of it to now being so overflowing that it's just running over the dam. Just crazy what a year can do. But enough about the weather. Looking forward to the rest of this show. We're going to be looking at a couple of things that ASTV is covering in the future here. One of those is the upcoming ball hockey, 2022 ball hockey junior national championship taking place in Winnipeg. We'll talk a little bit about that later on, as well as we are going to talk about some of the past players that we've called on ASTV. Me personally, with the Pilot Mountain Buffaloes, getting a chance to call all of their academy teams, but a couple of Buffaloes on the female side going to be advancing their hockey careers. We'll get into that a little bit later after commercial break, but yeah, we'll send it to a quick commercial break and come back, and we'll dive into my adventures in Edmonton. Like I said, was a great couple of weeks, but we'll dive into that in just a little bit after our first commercial break. All right, and welcome back, everybody. As mentioned, we're going to dive into the 34th annual Brick Invitational. I got the chance to go with ASTV to do some producing of the games. For those of you who haven't been tuning in, the annual Brick Invitational Tournament is a tournament put on at the West Edmonton Mall under the Brick umbrella, where it features a bunch of the brightest young superstars, if you want to call them, for the 10-year-old age group. And this year actually got a chance to witness two age groups there. We got to see the 2011 and 12 division. So it was interesting to get a look to see. Obviously, talking to some of the tournament coordinators, said that definitely a lot more work going into this year's tournament, just because had to compensate for that extra time. Part of that spilling over to for the original tournament, or the first part of the tournament for the 2011 born players, having to have a couple of their games, not all of them, broadcast in the West Edmonton Mall. Unfortunately, we weren't able to cover those with ASTV, but still, I believe, can be watched the recorded version of those games on our website, astvproductions.com. But, starting with the 2011 group, the Connecticut Rangers were able to pull out not just the 2012 version of Connecticut Junior Rangers ended up winning both versions of, but we'll start off with the 2011s. They were obviously the first. So looking at the 2011 birth year, looking at the standings, Team Minnesota ended up winning the round robin with 12 points in their 5 games, 4 wins, 1 loss, and no overtime or shootout losses. And they definitely were a team that you didn't want to mess with. They made it into the semifinals. Had a couple players who were able to register a number of points there, starting with Owen Moulton, number 11 for Team Minnesota. He ended up being, I believe, one of the tournament all-stars. He picked up 10 points, 5 goals, 5 assists in 5 games. Looking at the overall top point getter, definitely was a guy to keep an eye on. Brody Trost, for all you guys who maybe are going to go back and watch a couple of these games. Definitely going forward into the future, as I mentioned, this prestigiousness of this tournament will, kind of keep fans such as yourselves engaged over the years. I know I find myself going back to the YouTube pages of Brick Hockey and, watching some of those highlight goals and assists and plays over the past years from current NHLers, and I guarantee there's going to be a couple of players that I got the chance to watch up close and personal, and that's something that really hit home for me that was so awesome. But, there's no doubt that there's going to be a number of players from this 2011 birth year of the Brick Invitational and 2012, but that we're going to see their names called on draft day. And speaking of draft day, talking to a couple of the organizers for the Brick, it was interesting to learn some of the history, some of it, well documented, that they have a number of NHL regulars playing or having had played in this tournament, such as Jonathan Taves, Eric Johnson, recent Stanley Cup winner. The list goes on and on. But it was interesting to learn that from the 2014 Brick tournament, which featured, a couple of guys picked in the NHL draft this past month. But it was interesting to learn how many of those players were, first round draft picks. Majority of the 29 players having previously played in the Brick tournament in the NHL 2000 2022 NHL draft. Of those 29 players, 10 of them were first rounders, and all of those guys, as mentioned, played in this prestigious tournament. A couple of those names were Rutger McGordy, Winnipeg Jets draft pick. He, having played for the Toronto Bulldogs, they were definitely a strong team in both years. Also, Winnipeg Ice standout Matt Savoy, recent Buffalo Sabres draft pick, having played for Team Brick Alberta, as well as his Winnipeg Ice teammate Connor Geeky, recent Arizona Coyotes first round draft pick, him having played for my local Winnipeg Junior Jets when he attended the Brick Tournament. So it's just interesting to see how many high-end players have come out of this mini tournament. And another side note, interesting to see how in detail the Brick organizers went with going the extra mile to down the hallway for the dressing rooms, putting every Brick team that's ever been attended since 1991 on the wall, kind of like how I believe in the Joe Louis, they have all the past teams rosters on the walkway to the dressing room. The Brick organizers doing the same thing, having every player that ever played there on with their name, and then every NHL player or person with NHL experience, they went ahead and put a red underline, even going as far as to having the 2011 and 2012 birth year rosters up on the wall. So I can only imagine how cool it would be for those young players to see, a name like Brody Trost right beside Shane Wright, a guy who recently also just got drafted. Seeing, the name Jackson Liao right beside Johnny Gaudreau. That's something that even for the players who, don't make it to that next level, you got to imagine was just a great experience for them. They all earned it. Every ounce, every player there deserved to be there. As I mentioned a couple times to my counterpart there, Glenn Munford, you could take one of these 10, 11-year-olds and put them up against five of me, and any day, these 10-year-olds would, break my ankles, dangle me out of my jock strap. Just they were that good. It was just so amazing to see, and it really exceeded my expectations. As I've mentioned in previous broadcasts, I've kind of always kept a keen eye on this tournament just because of the prestigiousness of it. But it really, being there, being in the environment, it was surreal to, understand where you are, what you're doing. And, for me personally, understanding that, you're witnessing the future of hockey, a sport that I so passionately love, to the point where, I'm doing a sports show such as this, talking to you viewers, putting myself out there a little bit. So, in 5-10 years, when, these kids have now gone through the draft, it'll be interesting to go back and see, who led the tournament, and, after their development with, as we've mentioned on the broadcasts, and we mentioned numerous times, you look back at past rosters of the Brick Tournament, and you can see there's a number of ex-NHLers. But, obviously not every player is going to move on to that highest level, but there are a number of semi-pro players and European pro players that are playing or have played in this tournament, and it's interesting to see, looking back at some of the prior tournaments, to see how some players were able to have more points than a guy like Shane Wright, as I mentioned before. Just looking back at his year at the Brick, not too shabby of a showing, but he ended up finishing 10th in the scoring in his 6 short games, registering 2 goals and 6 assists. So obviously, you look at that, a player who was the consensus #1 pick. Obviously, recent things kind of have come to air for Shane Wright. Obviously, him getting passed over and falling to Seattle at #4 in the recent draft. Obviously, that's something that he has shown his displeasure, but it's interesting to see a player who his development path changed. You notice that him finishing 10th, there's obviously 10 guys who scored more points than a current standout like Shane Wright. And, looking at it, not all of them are NHL regulars. Obviously, time will tell for a couple of them. But, looking at the 10 guys who currently or who were ahead of him in that 2013-14 Brick, you got the top scorer as Charlie Golub from the Toronto Bulldogs, registering 14 points in 6 games. So obviously, his young career is still going to be going on. But, next in line, the Rutger McGordy, as I mentioned, played for the Toronto Bulldogs. He finished 2nd. It's interesting. You see Rutger able to put up a lot of points in Brick, but, obviously a guy like Shane Wright elevated his performance over those short years and built his draft stock. So it is going to be interesting to see where these guys that I got a chance to witness, where they go in a couple of years. Before we send it to a commercial break, one last thing on the Brick. It really was interesting, not even just to watch the hockey, but to watch the joy in these kids' faces, understanding the moment, listening to their interviews. A lot of these kids probably have not been interviewed a whole lot. So ASTV going in there and kind of trying to give them the quote unquote pro experience or the pro feeling of, our broadcast, with the pregame, postgame interviews. We did some 3 stars of the game interviews, getting guys between periods to come up and talking to coaches, really was something that I think was a great experience for these young gentlemen, because you got to watch some guys. A guy I kind of thought had a lot of swagger by watching him was Miles Schillings for the 2012 Team Minnesota Brick. He was a guy who, he got a couple interviews, being a 3rd star a couple of times. Hearing his interviews, he was so the childlike wonder and enjoyment was something that I really enjoyed. But that's gonna wrap up our talk on the Brick. After the break, we're going to come back and talk about some college commitments from some players that we've called here on ASTV. We'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome to Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, your world-class academic and hockey training facility created to maximize each student's athletic and academic potential. Blackjack Stewart Arena, home of the Buffalo, is inside the 46,000 square foot complex, as well as a curling rink and other facilities. The students have a unique combination of successful, well-rounded education at Pilot Mountain Collegiate Institute and the professional hockey training in an encouraging community. The years of experience of on-ice coaching propel our students to the next level, both mentally and physically, in a professional environment.
Perfect ad to run for our next little segment here. Taking a look and shifting gears, we're going to take a look at the Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, a team that at ASTV we covered a number of times. Unfortunately, due to a couple of storms this year, it seemed like a lot of the storms ended up happening when the U15 and the female U18 play teams had games. Unfortunate, because both those teams, from the limited times got a chance to see, was interesting to watch. A couple of interesting and entertaining players that are going to see their hockey careers continue are Kaylee Keller and Julie Ducharme from the U18 Buffalo. Kaylee Keller recently committed to continue her education and hockey career at the Lindenwood University. She's going to be playing in the ACHA division in St. Charles, Missouri for the 2022-2023 season. Looking at Kaylee's stats, it ended up playing 43 games for the Buffalo and registered 3 goals and 5 points. So great to see Kaylee continue on her hockey career. And obviously Julie, it's great to see her as well. She recently committed to Hilbert College Hawks in the NCAA third division. She's going to be playing out of Hamburg, New York for the 2022-2023 season. Kaylee out of Calgary, Alberta, and Julie, don't have her hometown in front of me, but looking at Julie's games played, obviously one of the goaltenders for the Pilot Mountain Buffalo. In her 29 games played, she managed a 4.69 goals against and a 8.73 save percentage. So good luck to both those girls. They're going to be joining a couple of their teammates on the commitment list. Just looking back, their teammates Trinity Cavalry and Dana DeVito having committed also in these past couple weeks. That's one thing I'm I've kind of missed over the summer is getting a chance to watch those Pilot Mountain Buffaloes. They definitely were entertaining. Getting to see all the different age groups now having extended their development to another age group. Still going to be having the U15 prep male, U17 prep male, but adding the U18 prep male, as well as remaining with the U18 female. Recently getting underway, or already been underway for construction for their upcoming dorms to house all these players. Keep an eye out on pilotmountainhockeyacademy.com for news about some hockey camps, upcoming camps put on by some of the alumni for the young kids out there, but also for players who are wanting to attend prestigious or a nice local hockey facility or hockey school. I can attest Pilot Mound has, through talking with some of the coaches pre-game, post-game at Pilot Mound, have definitely given me the homey feel. They all kind of have that person first mentality. It's not all about the hockey. It's really a family. They kind of have a family feel. So definitely keep an eye out on pilotmountainhockeyacademy.com for any updates on their games, as well as player advancement, spring camps, and all that kind of stuff. We're going to send it to another commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple of an event coming up in the near future here, another event coming up in a couple weeks here on ASTV. We'll send it to a quick commercial break and come back and talk about ball hockey.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance, quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? We can install a system that is right for you with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.evolvegreen.ca.
And welcome back, everybody, for our final portion of the show. As mentioned, ASTV has another event coming in the near future here, starting July 28th and running until July 31st. We're going to be turning our attention to ball hockey, which is something that I've kind of heard come to light a little bit more recently, obviously, with working with ASTV, as well as, listening to podcasts and stuff out there. One I like to listen to is Spit and Chicklets podcast. Obviously, they do a lot for events in ball hockey. One, I believe, going on this upcoming week in Buffalo, New York. But we're at ASTV. You're going to be covering the Canadian Ball Hockey Association Junior National Championship that's going to be taking place in Winnipeg, and it's going to be exciting. I've never personally watched a floor ball or a ball hockey game, or at least an organized ball hockey game. Obviously, back in school playing ball hockey in the gymnasium, everybody has that experience. So I'm personally excited to see the intensity and kind of the differences between ice hockey and the ball hockey. Obviously, this is going to be some high caliber hockey. We're going to see some teams from BC. Looks like we got some Newfoundland teams. They got a Calgary team. Obviously, got a couple of Manitoba teams. So I'm excited to get to the Winnipeg arenas. Obviously, going to be coming to you from the Canada Life Center, Bell MT Iceplex, and the Keith Brody Arena. Those three are going to be the housing these games that get a chance to watch. And for all your information on it, be sure to hit up the CanadaBallHockey.ca website and look under the Junior National Championships under the event page. Get a little bit of information. As for anybody who maybe wants to come watch in person, they got information there on their website for hotels in the Winnipeg area. Obviously, gonna need to find a place for all these athletes to stay. So if you want to book, you're from out of town, you got some links to WestJet, but looking at the tournament, going to be a shorter one than I'm used to with this past one being 2 weeks there in Edmonton. But I'm definitely looking forward to getting a chance to watch hockey just in a different form. One other form would be roller hockey, another high intense game not been able to witness yet. So we're going to start off with the ball hockey, and we'll work our way from there. But before we sign out for today's show, always be sure to check out our ASTV website, Facebook page, YouTube page for all of the constant content coming out. Obviously, Off the Wall with Cody can be watched on YouTube, Facebook, but you can also watch a couple of our other shows, such as the On the Ice show, hosted by Theo, and a couple of our upcoming shows, the Indigenous Sports show, which is going to be hosted by Mark Kincaid, another gentleman who came on the journey with us to Edmonton. Had a great time getting to know Mark. Obviously, me and him getting to be roommates on the work trip. So getting to know him a bit, talking shop was a fun event. And to all the other people out there that I got a chance to meet, got to come face to face with Theo finally, as well as meet prior ASTV employee Rory McGoran, current voice for the Humboldt Broncos. But turning it over back to ASTV, our AAA show can also be watched, the Prospect show, and always keep an eye on our website, because we're constantly trying to develop new stuff, such as trying to develop a net cam, working with companies to maybe try and incorporate some live stats, such as face-off percentage, shooting percentage, a bunch of different things kind of in the works. So always awesome to see what we can provide you guys, the fans, as well as the players, because got to think a lot of these players like to go back and watch some of their prior games for highlights and key plays. So, interesting stuff here in the development with ASTV. Like I said, you can find it on our website, amateursports.tv. Sorry for the mispronunciation there. And whatever platform you're watching on, be sure to comment, tag us at Amateur Sports TV, and let's. We're going to sign out for tonight. I want to say thank you for coming and tuning in to another edition of Off the Wall with Cody. But for this Tuesday's edition, I'm going to say good night.